Hello and welcome to this episode of Own the Journey, where we are talking with amazing leaders from around the world to share their wisdom. And we're looking forward to our conversation today with Mr. Brad Erwin, who's the CEO of Paragon Architecture. So Brad, for our viewers who don't know anything about you or your organization, share just a little bit about what Paragon is, where you specialize, what you do.
Yeah, so Paragon Architecture, we focus in on, of course, architecture, but also interior design. We have offices in Springfield, Joplin, and St. Louis.
Wow.
Our main focus is public architecture, things that really impact communities. So that can mean anything that the state or local government does, down to grade schools, high schools and colleges, but then also really working with corporate leaders, small businesses, and healthcare. Those are, within that private segment, some of our most rewarding projects, because we really get to see that impact on each business as it moves forward from the services that we get to provide.
Oh, that's awesome. And so when you think about space design and the way that things are changing, I know sometimes you run into some challenges trying to bring creativity and new ideas and concepts with kind of traditional buildings and methodologies. How do you create the balance in that environment to drive innovation and new ideas?
It's always difficult because whatever we design has to be bid and costed out.
Yeah.
It has to be permitted, and then also has to be constructed. And so whatever we do, we have to keep that whole spectrum in mind, because whatever we create, it could be fantastic, but if it can't be executed along those other things, it's worthless.
Right.
We also have some risk involved. The further out that we push ourselves from a design perspective or how we use materials, there's actually more risk back onto us that it might fail, or it might fail 10 years from now.
Right.
And so it's really that blend of working within those parameters that we have. And quite frankly, I think some of the best designs come from the more constraints that you have. The more constraints you have on a project, from wherever direction they come from, I think it actually leads to better design. And so sometimes it is just being practical in one way, but using those practical materials in a different way, in a different flavor, in order to execute the vision of the owner that we're working with or the client that we're working with. But yeah, it can be, you sometimes have to kind of turn down the dial just a little bit on the design side in order to make sure that it's something that can be safely executed and constructed.
Wow, that's cool. I hadn't even considered the idea that sometimes constraints actually create better outcomes, and that's true, I think, in all areas of business. So one of the first things that you said was communities and the impact that you had in the community. Obviously, you are a guy who, in Springfield, are deeply involved in our community, engaged in countless number of organizations. Holy cow, when I was looking at the list, I was like, I didn't know that, and that, and that, and that. Well, first, why is that so important to you? And then second, how do you balance it all? That's a lot to ask.
It is. Very specifically when we look at the Springfield market and 417 land, I know that I would not have been able to be part of creating Paragon Architecture anywhere else. I think the entrepreneurial spirit, that opportunity for partnerships, there's just something different here. And so part of that community services is really like me giving back. That our community has given me the opportunity to do so much. That's just one way that I can give back. But the other way I look at it too is, how do I create, or how do I participate in something that's going to make our community better moving forward, so that when my kids have that choice of where to live, where to go to school, where to maybe come back to,
right, this
is at least one of the top three.
Right.
And so if kind of thinking in that realm, it makes all the other stuff easy to do. The better and more engaged that you are within the community, whether it's civic, nonprofit, economic development, I think it just makes you a better, for me, a better architect. I'm able to help our clients in different ways just because I'm part of so many different conversations. I can maybe connect the dots behind the scenes a little bit better than maybe somebody else. Our design might still be the same, but can I get them to the end a little bit easier, a little bit quicker, because of the right processes in place that I know are the right people in the community to connect them with.
Right.
And then, if it's just going to make it a better place to live and a better place to have employees. We all are facing talent attraction and talent retention issues. Well, if you can be in a community that is vibrant, that is a place that is actually attracting people, then it's easier to have the job for those people to come to.
Right.
And so it's kind of looking at it on all sides, both from a personal perspective, just that, altruistic piece. But I mean, there's a business aspect to it too when you look at the longevity of your company and the ability to attract and retain good people.
Good people, absolutely. And I love your concept. I mean, kind of what I heard at the heart and soul of that is that it's important for you within the community to give more than you receive, which is a foundation that I believe all businesses need to really grab a hold of. That if they focus on trying to constantly add value to give more than they receive, then ultimately their business and their employees and potentially even their children are going to benefit as a result of that.
Yeah, the community service piece and that public service piece that we do, there is definitely not a bottom line return on investment that you see at the end of the financial year on that income statement.
Right.
It doesn't exist. It's everything else that builds behind it.
Right.
And if you're only doing it to network, if you're only doing it to try to get that next piece of business, it's going to fail miserably. It won't work. The organization that you're working with isn't going to get what they need out of you,
right.
and you're not going to get what you need out of that experience either.
Yeah, and I think that's a mistake that a lot of businesses make that you hit on dead, because they attribute a certain amount of those things to marketing dollars, and they do expect an ROI associated with it. But when you talk about community involvement, it's not there. The ROI is not financial. It's everything else that you get from it. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you touched on talent, and obviously we're all dealing with talent challenges in the world. In the architecture arena, I'm not exposed, I'm not in the game like you are. What's going on in your world? What are you having to do to make special accommodations to help make sure that you're being competitive in the market?
It's just like everybody else. You have to create the culture to support a growing team. You have to have all the pay, the benefits, stuff like that. But I think for things that we do, you have to have meaningful work. Because so many people may be okay with the mundane clicking buttons, pushing work out, but for so many more people, there has to be something behind it.
A why.
A why, exactly. And that's what, for us, when we get to work with a corporate entity, a mom and pop shop, a private business, whatever, you get to see how much of a big investment that entrepreneur is making in that business.
Well, you helped us.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was a fantastic experience for us.
Well, yeah, but and thank you. But we get to see that and get to see that effort, that fruits of that labor directly, and know that those challenges aren't just top of mind. They're deep. Like, yes, when those things happen. And so, same thing when we're working with our public clients. When you get to take part in renovation of a school or a brand new school, and you get to see 300 kids walk into that school for the first day, there's nothing that beats that.
Yeah.
And just seeing other little things that you do within the community and how that can have that positive impact. That's a lot easier to work a few extra hours a week, to come in on a weekend, to go to a school board meeting late at night while your family's at home. When you see those fruits come to bear, it makes it a lot easier to then put in that extra effort. And so it's really, I look at all those types of things to really then create that environment for people to thrive in and people to really rally behind.
So I believe in everything that you're talking about. I think what I heard you say was really what we're doing is we're creating alignment between the clients, between the business, the owners, and the employees, the team that are getting it done. And when that alignment exists, the velocity of the business speeds up, and you get people really working towards a great outcome. I think it would be cool to be there on day one when 300 kids run in. That's a pretty neat experience. So obviously in today's world, talent is a challenge, but in addition to talent, it's access to materials, it's delays, there's inflation. What's that doing to construction industry right now?
We've been seeing it now for over 12 months.
Yeah.
Anything that can go wrong on a project probably has in the broad spectrum of projects over this last 12 months especially.
Yeah.
And it's a real challenge, because even the best of the best construction managers, the best of the best general contractors, are still getting surprised when something just kind of disappears from stock.
Yeah.
When something usually takes 2 weeks, then was taking 4 weeks, now all of a sudden it's taking 8 weeks. that's a real challenge, especially in the construction industry that they're facing. And we have to be those good partners. We have to be that good design partner to support them, to work with them quickly when they need that information, but also show them some grace.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is dealing with whatever this pandemic inflation world we're in, but them, especially for us, we've got our own unique challenges, but our contractors are really facing that, whether it is from labor, but mostly it's from those materials. And then really then being able to communicate and prepare our clients for what those costs or what those timelines might be well in advance. So everybody kind of gets an understanding of what the playing field is right now, because it is different than, well, actually a lot of people only go through a building project once or twice in their professional career. Yeah, right. Even our most frequent clients or clients that do projects often maybe only do it every 2 or 3 years. And so the building environment's a lot different than 2 years or 3 years ago. And so there's maybe certain assumptions that some people may have, and we just have to make sure that all of our expectations are laid out. Everybody knows what we're getting into well in advance. So when surprises are going to happen, challenges are going to happen, we kind of know how we need to work within them and can work together and be proactive through that.
Yeah, well, I think you hit on a key area that I think is critical when we talk about oftentimes, in the business community, culture always comes up. We talk about relationships, but really keying in on what it means to have the ideal partners around you. That's really, really valuable to align yourself with, because it really determines the velocity of your business without those key partners to help.
Well, that's what, when we look back and look at what makes a successful project, we do a really good job of having a project come in on time and under budget. Like those are some of those really key metrics buzzwords, right? On time, under budget. We do a really great job with that. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest measure of success is, does the contractor, owner, and architect and the design team, do they all want to work together again? Mm-hmm. That's that feeling, that's the memory that's going to live on well beyond, did you come in on time, did you come in under budget? Right. Those stats are easier to forget versus that feeling of what it's like to work together. Do I have your back during the project? When that challenge came up, how did I react? How did we work together? Right. If that's sour, it doesn't matter if you're on time and under budget. That relationship won't happen again. Right. And those relationships are what's really key to making something successful and live on.
I think that can extend well beyond the construction era as well. I think any kind of project management or any kind of a situation, that metric that you described of do they want to work together again in the future could be really valuable. Yeah. And that's some really good advice. So when you think about projects, what advice would you give to people? Like, what are the biggest mistakes that people make? What are the things that you wish they knew that they don't know going into it? I mean, if somebody's getting ready to undertake, a remodel or a big construction project, and you're just going to give them, like, from the very beginning, what would you start with?
Well, it's not 2019 again, and it's definitely not 2015 again, right? It's amazing how long ago 5 years is, but at the same time, it feels like yesterday when you're doing construction. Right. And so, within the environments that we live in right now, just making sure that everybody's expectations are the same. Mm-hmm. Whether that is time, whether that's pricing, but really, being able to understand what that process is like. Some people may believe that from a design perspective, we talk once or twice and then we just go behind the corner, come back out, and ta-da, it's done, right? Yeah. And maybe there are some projects that go that way, but most of the time, really, to be really successful, there takes a lot of time for us to be able to kind of extract information, your needs, your wants, your desires out of what you need for this project, for us to come back with some potential solutions. But more importantly, for you to have that ability to reflect, to have some time to digest what you're looking at, because most people, again, aren't doing this every day. Right. And so you need that time for that feedback, and then we need to go through that a couple of times to make sure that before we really start taking this design and turning it into construction documents, basically something that can be bid and built from, we've got the design right. Yeah. Because if we move through that at too quick of a pace, we're just going to keep coming back and coming back and coming back, and that timeline is going to keep getting extended. Right. And same thing, like the high quality of documents, like we need that time during that construction document phase in order to create a set of documents that is quickly and easily priced and permitted, and the contractor's got something solid to build from.
Yeah.
And so what we find is that, everybody wants compressed timelines, but there's reasonable timelines in order to really get to that finish line pretty easily and at the same amount.
Yeah, trust the process.
Trust the process.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
Yeah, cool. So I can say from our own personal experience that it really makes a difference in that design phase. But talk to us a little bit about how you work with an organization to understand space needs, like workflow, like who needs to talk to who, all those kind of things. I mean, it's a big part of the process.
It is, and it is changing too. So I think within our environment, within our market, we're not seeing as maybe of a wild swings with the workplace environment, the work from home, as much as maybe some of our metro areas or big cities and on the coasts. Because part of the challenge with that is being able to be immersed in that environment, to understand what those relationships are within the office, within the workflow. How important is it for these two departments to have that interaction, but sometimes it's important to have the non-planned interaction, those incidental collisions. Yeah. And so that's the real challenge I see moving forward, is that with more work from home, those collisions have to be forced, they have to be scheduled, and then they're just not collisions anymore, they're meetings.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of our biggest challenges moving forward, is how to be able to keep those environments strong in that way when you have more flexibility in where somebody works. But what we're looking at, especially from a workplace environment, is to be able to create something that's still a magnet for people to come into the office.
I love it.
Now, it may be 4 days a week versus 5 or 3 or whatever it is, but to have that environment that's both flexible, adaptable, but intentional.
Yeah.
And so that could mean that with the more open work environments that we're seeing, that a small conference room is great for 4 people in a meeting. It's a great 2 or 3 person collaborative environment to be able to get together. Obviously, the video conferencing has to be key, so the technology piece within that, but also just a place for somebody to go dive into for 2 hours just to focus.
Just a quiet space.
Just a quiet space to focus. And being able to create those different types of environments throughout the workplace, I think, is really important, because as we have that shift and that talent retention piece and that talent attraction, that environment also has to represent who you are from a culture perspective.
Right.
So that's why being ingrained a little bit within an organization to understand what are those key metrics that they're looking at internally can then help be reflected back into the space. And it's not just a cookie cutter cubicle farm that gets spread out across the square footage.
So literally, the space design can have a huge impact on the culture of the company, which then obviously has an impact on retention and success, how people feel, and back to that whole environment.
And one of the things that we talk about with our clients is that when they're looking at this, step out of your office. Come into your office from the front door with a fresh set of eyes. And what's that first impression?
Yeah.
That's what all of your new hires, that's what all of your clients get. And sometimes it's hard when you're coming in through the back door or the side door every day, and you're seeing the same thing over and over with the same set of eyes that have seen that forever, to have that perspective. But that's why the quality of space can really impact that work environment.
That's really cool. I had no idea. Well, you touched on technology. Obviously, there's lots of shifts and changes going on in the world. The demand for work from home, the demand for video conferencing and some of those capabilities. How's that impacting your world, and what do you see coming in space design in the future beyond the obvious things like video conferencing and some of those capabilities?
More mobile.
Yeah.
Right? So that ability to easily work from anywhere is here, even if you're in the office for 4 days a week.
Yeah.
We've all just gone through school shutdowns or alternative methods of instruction at home, or snow days, or whatever that is. And I think that the more adaptable your work environment is to the technology, and it may just literally mean how easy it is it to use a laptop at your desk, makes that whole thing work. Because otherwise, you're just kind of stuck. You're just kind of dead in the water with so many of the things that we've been through the last 2 years. So that really translates, then you start looking at how does the acoustics within a space work? How does your lighting work? The indoor air quality, and it's a minor thing. It's not on most people's top priority list.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about trying to keep people in the office and to keep that culture alive, it's all those different types of things that make a big impact back. And so where that goes back to technology is in our systems. So all of our systems, all of our controls are becoming a little bit more complicated just because they are so ingrained within everything we do now.
I see.
It didn't used to be that way. 10 years ago, everything was pretty well dumb and not as smart as it is now. But that adds that extra level of complexity from a design perspective, but also that construction piece too.
Yeah, well, and I think what you've nailed is adaptability or agility inside the environment, and all the way to, I mean, some of the challenges that we worked through when we were first getting things balanced was temperature controls. Like the temperature controls weren't right, and that'll run people off or get them excited about coming in because they're comfortable all day long, or because they can pop up and go to the conference room and get things done.
Yep, and that goes all the way through the organization in all the different types of spaces that you're in.
Yeah.
You know, the private offices versus that open workspace versus the kitchen.
Yeah.
And you know, frankly, you can have some failures within some of those things, but if you got that laptop and that ability to work from anywhere, it makes it a little bit easier to overcome some of those things.
Right. Cool. Well, talk to us just a little bit. Obviously, you've hit the Inc. 5000 fastest growing small businesses, the best places to work. I mean, you're doing some amazing things. How do you get your executive team, your leadership team, on the same page? What processes are you using? How do you get aligned?
You know, that's actually a continuous challenge for us as we continue to grow and evolve. Mm-hmm. We're almost on the third evolution of who we are when we look back and say, oh yeah, that was kind of Paragon, and for these 2 or 3 years, this is Paragon for these 2 or 3 years. We're kind of in that third spot right now. And really that alignment up and down the organization for us has come from a little bit different approach, is that we actually have the entire office, all of our full-time employees, involved in strategic planning.
Wow.
And so when you talk about alignment throughout the organization, that's a little bit easier to do when you do that. You know, we take 3 days away, we dive pretty deep, but when we come out of it, there's no, you know, communication down through the organization structure.
Because everybody's there.
Everybody's there.
Wow.
There's no lost translation of what was covered here to everybody else because everybody was in the room.
Right.
And it's a big commitment. It's both from a mental perspective of having that many people in the room and that many voices, but also just, you know, it's 3 days away but we see the benefits tenfold of what we're able to do and what we're able to accomplish throughout the year because we're all part of those conversations. Every one of us has that ability to set the direction for the company in some way. And, you know, we kind of get some pushback on that. Is that a smart thing to do? But, you know, for me, the aha moment is, why are you only allowing people to lead when they're in a leadership position versus allowing them to lead within the firm, allow them to set direction within the firm before they necessarily have the title to do so. And, you know, some of our youngest staff, they don't know anything different at this point. Right. They've been with us for 5 years. They've been part of strategic planning for 5 years, and they've got a key voice in the direction of the firm.
I love it.
And, you know, I think it really helps set us up really, really well, and has been, I think, the foundation for what we've been able to do and how we've been able to do it.
That's awesome. So what advice would you give to an organization maybe that can't get, I mean, like, we're in customer service, obviously, you know, we can't shut down what we do for 3 days. How would you handle it, or do you know how you would handle it if you couldn't do that?
You know, I think it comes back to, you know, why are you in it? What's that why? Mm-hmm. And I think if everybody within the organization can understand the why, it's easier to get that alignment all the way throughout that organization.
Yeah.
You know, I think if each department understands the interdependency of each other, if they understand the cause and effect of what they do and how that impacts other people in the organization and outside that organization, and it is as simple as the why, but that can have a huge impact to just rowing in the same direction and maintaining that target.
I like that. And I think one of the things that I heard you say that we have experienced in our own organization, we describe as downstream. So what does it mean to take good work product from one part of the organization and make sure that it's the quality that the next group or the next team is expecting? And if it's not, how do we get that feedback loop to make sure that both upstream and downstream are on the same page so that when you're rowing together, that that you're not having run one oar out of the water the whole time.
There's enough chaos that comes from the outside world into our organizations. Keep the chaos low inside those four walls, and it's going to be a lot easier to do.
That's awesome. Well, one of the things that you hit on that I really believe in, which is everybody inside the organization is a leader. One of my favorite books is by David Marquette, that he has turned the ship around, and he describes it as leader, so that everybody in the organization is a leader. For our young companies or new companies, how do you foster a relationship like that with new people coming into the company, whether they're straight from high school, whether they're from college, whatever? How do you make them feel like that they matter, their voice matters, and that candidly you give a shit about their opinion? How do you do that?
Trust. I mean, you have to be able to trust that they are there for the right reasons until they give you reasons not to believe that any longer.
So start with trust from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's so easy to not do that. And that's kind of the default.
Yes.
I think if you can trust and then also get out of their way, just get out of their way. You hired them to do a job. You brought them in for some reason. Let them do it. Let them do what they are there for and get out of their way.
I love it.
And I think those two things have gone a long way within the growth and trajectory of our firm to be able to do the things that we're able to do. And I think without those two things, we wouldn't be where we are today, without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, you guys have had some tremendous success. So, do you think? When there's trust in letting people do their thing, but you also have to coach, mentor, train, all of those kind of things. So what's the balance there? Is making sure that they know how to get the help they need?
Yes, I mean that's been foundational for us. Is we had the sink or swim mentality for a long time because we didn't know any different.
Because you had to.
We had to, right? But once we got to a little bit of a critical mass where we actually knew and had the people to be able to help with that mentorship, help with that training, and put together a formal program internally, it's been tremendously different. I mean, hugely successful in that trajectory of those new staff members, whether they're fresh out of college or experienced. But yeah, if they don't have that foundational to start with, it's hard for everything else to follow. And so, bringing them in board, onboarding somebody in a way that sets them up for success is paramount.
Well, I love it. And that helps with that same page, from the very beginning. So do you actually say, like, this is your mentor, this is your coach, this is who you go to for help?
So for us, we have an internal belay, we call it. Somebody to hold the rope, guide them up the mountain, and it's a formal mentorship type thing for the first 6 to 12 months that they're in, and but by then that relationship kind of is sticky from there moving forward, and then we actually prefer to grow internally with student interns, and so we have them go through that process as a student intern, but then when they're hired full-time, they get to go through it again.
Oh, wow.
And so it really helps that foundation get strong because as a part-time or summer student intern, you kind of only see certain pieces.
Sure.
And so to bring them and re-engage them throughout, and we also find that sometimes a new employee actually chooses to sit back into the initial training for a session or two on certain pieces that they felt that they might be a little bit weak on, or they just haven't had the experience in the first year of working to do that just yet, and they want to get refreshed on it.
Nice.
And so that goes back to that culture piece. They know that it's okay for them to take 2 hours that could be billable and go sit in training. They know that that's okay with Brad, that's okay with the organization. Nobody's going to be looking at them like they're a slacker, that it's actually encouraged to be strong, to get that skill set up.
I love it. So they have the confidence inside your organization to pause for their own learning, for their own personal and professional development, because they know that you've got their back. I love it. Well, Brad, thanks for everything, man. Congratulations. And I will say cheers to you, and congrats for owning your journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, man.